The Gospel of Gold by G.S. Lewis. Chapter 30, Queen of the Balcony. To Gold's imagination, Blackthorn City Gym might have been a massive fortress of obsidian stone, complete with black clouds overhead and perpetual lightning. It was themed after dragon types, after all, so a medieval setting seemed to him appropriate. Moreover, considering its keeper, he expected an ominous, evil aura. What he actually found, after passing through the sleeping town, was a yellow bricked building with a high roof and tall glass panes. He was not wholly disappointed, since the structure was surrounded by a sturdy brick wall and a moat of water on three sides. But it was not a castle in any sense. Gold was reminded, rather, of a Western cathedral or an old-fashioned academy, where the children of noble families were sent to receive their education and training. But what have you trained for? Gold thought grimly. Was it all just to serve, in the end, whatever power held the most influence, no matter how immoral? He stopped. Two Dragonite statues leered down at him from the corner posts of the walls, and the iron gates before him held fast. There was no way to get any closer. Beside him, Spirit stood, her eyes watching the upper floor windows. No figure stirred. Not a sound broke the early morning silence, but the gentle rush of wind. "They're in there?" Gold asked softly, turning to his companion. "All of them?" "They are," replied Spirit. "You have but to call Claire, their hostess, and the rest will come." Gold looked behind him nervously. There were houses and residential apartments nearby, but still not a soul on the street. If he were to just suddenly burst out yelling at the crack of dawn, it would undoubtedly draw some very unwelcome attention. At best, he figured he would have about 5 minutes before the local law enforcement dragged him off for disturbing the peace. He looked back at Spirit uncertainly. "Is this one of those times where you tell me to do something, and then magic happens out of nowhere?" "No," she said simply. "No magic and no miracles while they are not necessary." She gave him a meaningful look. "All that is required now is faith and courage. No small things either, but they will do what you would expect of miracles." Gold nodded and sighed, and fortified his resolve. After a few seconds, resigning himself to trust in Spirit's guidance, he filled his lungs and shouted, "Claire! You have friends of mine! Come out with them!" He had cried the words as loudly as he could, but his voice, in his own ears, sounded thin and small, and far less impressive than any Pokemon trainer he'd seen on television. Hastily, he followed up with the only other thing he could think to say. "It's Gold!" It wasn't an improvement. Gold stood, panting slightly, and swung his arms to let off a little of the building tension. He glanced back at Spirit. "Was that enough?" She nodded. "Now we wait." Gold dreaded waiting. The seconds crept along, and he stood, watching the gym building, occasionally shifting his weight restlessly from foot to foot. Nothing was forthcoming, at least from what was visible. He wondered what he would do when something finally did happen. Would Claire storm out through the double doors? Would Archer, with a battalion of dragon tamers, turn rockets? Would the town constable come first and take him in for questioning about his goldenrod escape? Or would Koga come, assuming his Crobat was on its stealthy flight to League HQ already? "Be strong, Gold," whispered Spirit beside him. "Have courage." My walking stick, Gold realized abruptly, looking at his empty hands. I forgot it somewhere back before Ice Path. I am with you for a little longer, said Spirit. Lean on me. Gold felt his heart beat harder. Only a little longer? He asked, his voice strained. And then what? Am I on my own? Before either of them could say anything else, the iron gates barring the inner courtyard buzzed, gave a metallic scrape, and swung inward by themselves. At the same moment, one of the inner doors of the gym creaked open, and a person's head and torso leaned out. Gold's heart beat yet harder, but this time it was in a surge of joyous energy, and he called her name with gladness. Marina! Gold! In a terrific dash that Gold would not have believed possible for any human, Marina shot across the courtyard and flew into his arms, knocking him backwards and to the ground. They lay for a moment, locked in a breathless embrace, before Gold let go long enough to allow himself an upright posture. Marina clung fiercely to his right hand. You came! She cried with a grateful wail, if such a thing was possible. I was afraid you would, and also afraid you wouldn't. But now that you're here, I've never been happier to see anyone. Are you okay? Gold responded, looking her over with concern. You're not hurt, are you? The back of my head's a little sore, Marina said, feeling it with her free hand. But Alan hasn't done anything to me. He told me to tell you that he's letting me go as a peace offering. Peace offering? Gold was taken aback at the message at first, but his surprise gave way to anger. Climbing to his feet, he shouted at the stronghold more forcefully than before. What do you have to do with peace? Come out! Marina stood, and Gold glanced at her over his shoulder. Get behind me. She complied, retreating a couple of paces, but regarding him curiously. What's going on, Gold? Do you have a plan? I never have a plan, Gold muttered. But I'd like to hear his. Alan can easily afford this show of goodwill now that you've served your purpose as bait. But I want him to look me in the eye now that he has me and confess what he gets for betraying us. If he has any shame left, that should prove harder for him.